Hello everyone, my name is Adil Laza, and in this video we are going to learn about electric field lines, electric flux, and finally Gauss law. So let's begin without any delay. These are the topics covered in this video. Pause the video if you wish to go through it. First we will learn electric field lines. Electric field lines are curves to graphically represent electric field on paper. Unlike electric field, which is a physical vector quantity, electric field line is not a physical quantity. It is just a convenient way to represent electric field on paper. Imagine that you have been provided with electric field lines in certain region and you wish to calculate electric field in that region at some point. How will you do that? Consider 2 points in such region, point A and point B. Draw small and equal cross-sectional areas around point A and around point B. As you can see, around point A, number of electric field lines crossing this area is 4 unit and number of electric field lines crossing this area is 2 unit. Therefore, if you say that the magnitude of electric field at point A is E naught, you can safely say that the magnitude of electric field at point B will be half of it. Fine. So what have we learned? We have learned that the magnitude of electric field at certain point will be proportional to the density of electric field lines. Fine. And what about the direction? Imagine that you have wished to calculate the direction of electric field at this point P. You will simply draw a tangent to it and the tangent will give you the direction of electric field. Fine. I have drawn electric field lines in 3 cases, first, second and third. In case 1, this is electric field lines due to a positive charge. This is electric field lines due to a negative charge, and in this case electric field lines due to a pair of positive and negative charge. Fine. Let's move to the next slide. Now we will learn about the properties of these electric field lines. The first property says that electric field lines start from a positive charge and end at negative charge. What do I mean by this? That electric field lines emerge from a region containing positive charge and electric field lines vanish into a region containing the negative charge. Or you may say that positive charges behave like source for the electric field lines and negative charge behave like a sink for the electric field lines. Fine. So let's move to the next point. Next point says that in a charge-free region, in a region containing no net charge, electric field lines are continuous curves. How so? Imagine the opposite, the contradictory situation in which electric field lines are discontinuous in a charge-free region. So as you can say, electric field lines are vanishing into thin air and electric field lines are emerging from a region containing no net charge, which opposes our first point. Fine. Therefore, this can never be the case. Electric field lines has to be continuous in a charge-free region. Fine. Let's move to the next point. The third property says that electric field lines never cross each other. Why so? Imagine a situation in which electric field lines were to cross each other at certain points. At any such point, point P, you will be able to draw 2 tangents. Then you will have 2 directions for the electric field at point P, which is physically impossible. Electric field at any point can have only 1 direction. Therefore, this can never be the case. Electric field lines will never cross each other. And the last property says that electrostatic field lines do not form closed loops. That is, electric field lines due to charges at rest will never form closed loops. Why so? Because if they did, then electrostatic field lines will not be considered conservative fields and we will not be able to define electrostatic potential. You will later be taught in the chapter of magnetism, in which Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction says that even changing magnetic flux can create electric field. And such fields can form closed loops, but not electrostatic field lines. Electric field lines due to charges at rest will never form closed loops. Fine. That concludes our properties for the electric field lines. We will move to the next slide. Electric flux. First, we will learn what does this word flux mean. Flux of any physical vector quantity means the amount of field lines crossing a given cross-sectional area. Imagine a situation in which you have a tube with a cross-sectional opening A where streamlined flow of water are flowing. In this case, the word flux would imply the amount of water leaving this cross-sectional area A. Consider a similar situation except the case that the opening is tilted at an angle theta. Fine. As you can imagine, the amount of water leaving in this case and in this case will be the same. Therefore, the flux in this case and in this case will be the same. Therefore, in this case, how we will calculate the flux? We will calculate the flux by taking the product of velocity and the component of area which is parallel to the velocity. Therefore, finally, flux will come out to be V times A dash cos theta. Therefore, we define flux as the dot product of velocity vector and A dash area vector. As you can imagine that this is a dot product, therefore flux must be a scalar quantity. Fine. Similarly, in case of electric field lines, electric flux means the amount of field lines leaving a given cross-sectional area. Imagine a situation in which you have uniform electric field crossing this shaded region. In this case, electric flux would be the magnitude of electric field times the component of cross-sectional area which is parallel to the field, which will be A cos theta. Therefore, it will come out to be dot product of electric field and area vector. Fine. Let's move to the next slide. So what have we learned so far? That electric flux is a measure of number of electric field lines crossing a given area which is placed normal to the field. And how do we calculate its value? By taking the dot product of electric field vector and area vector. And in case of a varying electric field, we use this expression in the integral form, that is integration of E dot dA. Keep in mind one sign convention, that in case of a closed surface area, like in this case a cube, electric flux due to electric field lines leaving the surface area phi1 will be considered positive, and electric flux due to the electric field lines entering the surface area phi2 will be considered negative. Therefore, in this case, net flux will be phi1 minus phi2. Let's move to the next slide. Finally, Gauss law. Imagine three identical closed surfaces in which some electric field lines are leaving the surface while some are entering the surface. But you cannot see what is holding within each surface. Can you tell just by looking at number of electric field lines leaving or entering the surface, which of them contain net positive charge, which of them contain net negative charge, or which of them contain no excess charge? Let's see. In case 1, as you can see, number of electric field lines entering the surface is same as number of electric field lines leaving the surface. Therefore, as per the sign convention which we have discussed in the previous slide, net flux leaving the surface will be 0. You can imagine that whatever the electric field lines are entering are also leaving. Therefore, net charge inside that surface must be 0. Otherwise, if it were to contain any positive or negative charge, it will contribute any outward or inward flux, which is not the case. Fine. Let's discuss the second case. In this case, the number of electric field lines leaving the surface is greater than the number of electric field lines entering the surface. As per the sign convention, net flux will be positive. Fine. You can imagine that those excess electric field lines which are leaving must be coming from some positive charge. We have discussed the properties of electric field lines. Therefore, Q net inside this surface must be positive. Fine. Let's discuss case 3. In this case, the number of electric field lines entering the surface is greater than the number of electric field lines leaving the surface. Therefore, as per the sign convention, net flux will be negative. You can imagine that those excess electric field lines must be vanishing into some negative charge. Therefore, net charge inside that closed surface area must be negative. Fine. So what have we learned? We have learned that if net outward flux from a closed surface area is 0, the net charge within that surface area is also 0. If net outward flux leaving a closed surface area is positive, then the net charge contained in that surface area is also positive. And quite the contrary, if the net outward flux leaving a surface area is negative, then the net charge within that surface area is also negative. This is what Gauss law is. Gauss law gives us a relationship between electric flux and the charge contained within that closed surface. Gauss law gives the relation between net electric flux leaving a closed surface area and the electric charge within that surface. And this is the mathematical expression for the Gauss law, that electric flux, which is integral of E dot dA over a closed surface area, is equal to Q net within that surface divided by epsilon naught. Epsilon naught is the permittivity of vacuum. Fine. And these surfaces are called Gaussian surfaces. And Gaussian surfaces do not need to be physical, they can be imaginary as well. You might have noticed that we did not derive the expression for the Gauss law in the previous slide because it is beyond the scope of your syllabus as it involves the concept of solid angle. So we will skip the proof, but we will verify it in case of a point charge. How is it done? Let's see. You have a point charge capital Q. You take a spherical Gaussian surface of radius r whose center is at the position of the charge. You have the expression for the electric field for this point charge from Coulomb's law, which is electric field is equals to kq by r square r cap. So you will then calculate the flux, the total outward flux leaving this closed surface area. How will you do that? You will take a small cross-sectional area dA on the surface and you will find out the value of this expression, integral of E dot dA. Value of E is kq by r square r cap and value of d is dA r cap. R cap dot r cap will become 1. You will be left with integral of kq by r square dA. Fine. You can see that for the given Gaussian surface, the value of this kq by r square is constant. Therefore, you will take it out of the integral sign. Therefore, you will be left with kq by r square integral of dA. And this is nothing but the surface area of a sphere, which is 4 pi r square. Therefore, you will be left with flux is equals to, I have taken the value of K to be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is the permittivity of the free space. So flux comes out to be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q by r square times 4 pi r square. You can see that this 4 pi cancels out, r square cancels out, and you are left with Q upon epsilon naught. Therefore, total flux leaving the surface area is Q upon epsilon naught, which is the expression for the Gauss law. So we have verified the Gauss law in case of a point charge. You might be wondering that Coulomb's law also gives us the expression for the electric field. Then what is the use of Gauss law? In cases where the system contains multiple charges, calculating electric field using Coulomb's law becomes cumbersome. Therefore, in such cases where the charge distribution is symmetric, we will rather use Gauss law to calculate electric field because it is a more convenient way. How is it so? Let's see with an example. We will have a uniformly charged long wire with line charge density lambda, and we have to calculate electric field using Gauss law. We have this long straight wire with lambda line charge density. Since electric field due to this configuration is in radial direction, it has cylindrical symmetry. Therefore, we will take the Gaussian surface to be a cylinder of height L and radius R. As you can see, there will be no electric field lines crossing the flat surfaces of the cylinder. Therefore, all the flux will be leaving through the curved surface area of the cylinder. Therefore, flux will come out to be the magnitude of electric field times the curved surface area of a cylinder, which is 2 pi RL. Fine. And what will be the net charge within that Gaussian surface? Lambda times L, because L is the height of the cylinder. Fine. From Gauss law, we know that the net outward flux leaving a Gaussian surface is equal to net charge within that surface divided by epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space. So we will have E into 2 pi RL is equals to lambda L divided by epsilon naught. And finally, the expression for the electric field will come out to be lambda divided by 2 pi epsilon naught R cap. This concludes the topic for this video. Thanks for listening till the end. Please like the video if you find it useful and subscribe to the channel. That's all. Take care.